Hi, my name is Josh Cotton. I'm a professional paleo artist and dinosaur expert, and today we're going to be reviewing Jurassic World. Now, this review is going to be different from any of the other ones that you'll find online, and I'll tell you why. As I'm sure you've heard from the news, scientists, and even the kid next door, there was a conscious decision made on Jurassic Park 4 not to update the animals based on our current understanding. Now, there's been a lot of complaining about this, but in this review we're actually going to do something about it. While we talk about the movie, you're going to see a time-lapse video of a still frame from the original 1993 film as I digitally paint over it to try to answer the question, if the filmmakers had chosen to update Jurassic Park 4, what might the Velociraptor have looked like? Now, before we get into critiquing the science and the dinosaurs of the film, let's talk about it as a movie. And first and foremost, it needs to be considered on the basis of its story, of its writing, of the characters, and just how much fun it was. Now, I love the original movies. The first film is my favorite movie of all time. I've probably seen it more times than T-Rex has teeth. My wife and I have a favorite date of going to the BYU Museum of Paleontology, where I've worked for the last 4 years. We go into the exhibit hall at night, set up a TV screen, and watch Jurassic Park in the dark surrounded by dinosaur bones. And I'll tell you what, it's magical. We actually revisited all 3 movies, finished the third one with some friends in the museum earlier this week to get ready for the release of Jurassic World. I was able to see the film Thursday night, and I have to tell you, I walked into the theater pretty prejudiced. I was pretty worked up and upset that they hadn't decided to update the dinosaurs. Emily sensed that I was tense, so she told me, prepare to be pleasantly surprised. And so that was kind of the attitude that I walked in with, trying really hard to be able to take the film on its own terms. And I'll tell you what, I had a blast. As much as I was worried about the dinosaurs, I had a blast. Now, that's not to say that I don't have some things to say about the science, but the film was an absolute thrill ride. I felt like I was a kid again. It was just that dinosaur love that you feel when you're 8 years old. Colin Trevorrow, the director, had a mission, and he said this many times going out, that he wanted to make the adults feel that feeling that they felt when they were kids with the first movie. And he absolutely succeeded in that. So kudos. The writing was good, and I'm going to try really hard not to give any spoilers here, but there was fantastic action, again, great human stories, there was drama, there was tension, there was conflict between good and evil, there was a lot of really funny moments, moments that you feel, oh, I've been there. And there was romance. And, a word about the romance, there were some good aspects of it, but I can't go without saying that there was an aspect of the romantic parts of the film that I struggled with. The first clip that was released previewing Jurassic World, this was a couple months ago, it didn't show any dinosaurs. It was just trying to show that this film could hold its own in drama. And it was a scene where the manager of the park, Claire Deering, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, and Owen Grady, the Raptor trainer, played by Chris Pratt. And it was a scene where she was trying to convince him to come help with this new beast, Indominus Rex, that everybody's been hearing so much about. And as skillful in the writing as the writing in the scene was, and as skillful as the acting was, I really cringed at that scene. And the reason is this. It was, this character, Chris Pratt, who was supposed to be the hero in the rest of the film, the good guy, the guy that the kids are looking up to both in the movie and in the audience, mixed in with his charm and with his moral high ground that he had over her in the conversation with regards to the dinosaurs. There were several blatant instances of sexual harassment. There's really no other way that you can describe that dialogue. Not that it was particularly explicit or foul on its language, but just the tone of it I was disappointed in, especially coming from a hero who so many kids are going to look up to. And it was played off as funny. It was played off as something that's okay to do because the hero's doing it, but it's really not. And the audience laughed, but there were kids in that audience. There were little boys looking up to this guy, And there's a lot of other things that he did in the film that you could look up to, but that really wasn't in an instance, and I think that it's going to have an impact on the way that the kids who watch that movie view the women in their lives, and that's really unfortunate. So moving beyond that, I did enjoy his character in the rest of the film. He was hardcore, riding on a motorcycle, eating the raptors, and I was really worried in the beginning that the whole deal with the raptors and training them was going to be cheesy, but it actually was a lot of fun. Pulled off really well. Indominus Rex, something everybody's wondering about, how cool it is. In all honesty, as an artist, I didn't find that design very attractive, but they did an excellent job of making it scary. You're terrified of that thing early on in the film and throughout the film. When it was coming, you're gripping your seat, your heart is pounding. It was blissful terror. Moving on to the science. So most people know by now that the biggest thing, or at least the most obvious thing that they haven't updated with current research in Jurassic Park 4 is the Raptors Integument, their covering. The raptors in this film are covered in scales, but we know that actual raptors were covered in feathers. There have been many, many fossils found to corroborate this. Now, these fossils were found after the first Jurassic Park movie was made, but not very many people know that there was suspicion that these animals had feathers for years and years before. Some artists, like Gregory Paul, who was hugely influential on the original Jurassic Park novel, began illustrating these animals with feathers as early as the late 1970s, and definitely into the 1980s. There were a lot of scientists who believed that they probably had feathers by that point, and definitely by 1993 there were a lot of scientists and dinosaur enthusiasts who felt that these animals should be covered in feathers, which places this film not on the bleeding edge of science, but 30 years behind, to a time even before the first film was made. But Spielberg decided at this point, there were still other scientists who believed that they should be scaly. That was the conservative position, and we're already rocking the boat of public perception of dinosaurs by showing them as active and bird-like in the way that they behaved. And so the decision was made not to include the feathers in that first film. Now, in future films, after the feathers were found, they started to update things a little bit. Most famously and controversially in Jurassic Park 3, where they gave the raptors some, or at least the males, some quills on the top of their heads. There were other updates that happened in the films as well. In the second Jurassic Park movie, halfway through the production, this is in The Lost World, there was a discovery that the animal called Stegosaurus, with the big old plates on his back and the spikes on his tail, they found out that he had armored scales on his throat. There were fossils found that indicated that. So partway through the production, they changed the model, they updated it because they wanted it to be as accurate as possible. And that was the general attitude, was they wanted to be as accurate as possible. They were conservative but accurate. So this fourth film is actually kind of a break from the tradition, from the legacy of Jurassic Park, and certainly the legacy of Michael Crichton in trying to make these things as accurate as possible, delivering not just a monster movie, but science. And it's a little bit disappointing to me, a little bit saddening. Again, fantastic film that I appreciated as a story, but it was sad to see that break from tradition, and especially as someone who loves dinosaurs, that becomes distracting to me. A sort of, some people would find the feathers distracting. I find the not feathers distracting because I have to try harder to believe the film. In the first movie, Hammond, who was the owner of Jurassic Park, said that with this place he wanted to create something and give something to people that was real, something that wasn't an illusion but that was real. And that has been also the mission of the filmmakers for a long time, but seems to be something that was abandoned with this film. But, and here's the exciting part, Dr. Wu, who returned for this film as the geneticist behind the dinosaurs, he was in one scene where he talked about how if these animals in the park were genetically pure, then some of them would look quite different. It doesn't say much more beyond that, but it suggests that, and leaves the series open to potentially updating the animals one day, which I really hope they do. A shout out to the filmmakers of Jurassic Park 5, which there is a trilogy plan. So a shout out to those filmmakers, guys. Please, please be brave. If anyone can pull off a second revolution in the public perception of the way the dinosaurs look, you guys can. If anybody can make feathers look cool on dinosaurs, you guys, the best artists in the world, can do it. Now, that's a big part of why feathers haven't been popular in public opinion. It's been hard for us as paleo artists to make these things look cool. From a design standpoint, there's been kind of a sound barrier, if you will, a barrier of making a feathered dinosaur look cool. But I believe these barriers are meant to be broken, and that someone will one of these days. And there are some people who are already starting to make them look cool. I mentioned earlier Gregory Paul. He's got to jump on the game. There's a lady named Emily Willoughby who is doing some excellent stuff. I recommend looking her stuff up. And, these are people who are educated in the field of paleontology and anatomy. But if we bring in filmmakers, people who are educated in the ideas of design and that work with scientists, the same thing will happen as happened in the first Jurassic Park. Nobody could imagine these animals as being cool, running around, acting like birds, the raptors. But, dinosaurs were never that cool before Jurassic Park, and then it set the standard. And you guys can do it again. And you know what? Anybody who's listening who likes to draw, likes to doodle, it might be you. Maybe you can do it. And we're getting closer and closer to that barrier. And some drawings and paintings, I think, are starting to cross it, I believe. Because there's no reason that just because something's fuzzy and colorful that it can't be scary. Tigers are fuzzy and colorful, and they're one of the most terrifying creatures on the planet. And it's, in part, their fuzziness, their fur, and the coloration of it, that's part of what strikes fear into our heart. Most of the most dangerous things on Earth are beautiful and colorful. And some of the coolest looking animals on Earth are birds. If you want to see a cool looking, scary looking bird, after this, Google search bearded vulture. Kind of a weird name, but crazy cool looking bird. And something that a lot of people don't realize is that the feathers that the dinosaurs had, most of them wouldn't have been like the feathers that we see on modern birds. They would have been these things called protofeathers. These little single filaments, single fibers that would have been in appearance much closer to fur or hair than we would think of as our modern bird feathers. Some of them then later split and turn into kind of a fuzzy down in some dinosaurs, and then ultimately the feathers, like on the arms of the raptors, we know that raptors had long modern type feathers, at least on their arms. In this particular painting, I've decided to keep most of the body covered in proto-feathers because just the form was so beautiful and I didn't want to cover it up. So there's a lot of room to explore and to design. Invite you guys to try it out. So moving on to some of the other science in Jurassic World. The mosasaur, the swimming reptile that a lot of people are talking about, that was definitely too big. It was a big animal. It got to be about 60 feet long. Some of its relatives got to 70 or 80 feet long. The animal in the film was even twice as long as that. But you gotta be big and scary for Hollywood. Kind of a similar thing happened with the pterosaurs. Some of those were much bigger than they actually were and behaved in a way very different from what the fossils suggest. There was a scene where, and you saw it in the trailer, where all the pterosaurs break loose, these flying reptiles related to the dinosaurs, and they're attacking the people, and some of them picking them up and carrying people off. They would be hard pressed to carry off something as big as their head. That probably would have been a little more average. There's no known pterosaur that would have been able to pick up a human. They were already pushing the limits of what an animal can carry in its own weight because they were so huge. But they had these things as being aggressive and attacking things, in some cases much larger than themselves. Additionally, pterosaurs would also have been fuzzy. We've actually known that a lot longer than we've known about dinosaurs being fuzzy. There were some positive things about the science, like the long-necked dinosaurs, the Apatosaurus that they found lying down on the ground. for once, it got the nostril placement right. You don't see that very often in films. But when you get up close to that animatronic Apatosaurus, the skin, they've got it kind of, there weren't any scales, it was kind of elephant-like. And I can understand with budget not wanting to detail the whole thing, but the animals would have been completely covered with scales. They might have looked a little more rubbery and elephant-like at a distance, but up close you would definitely have been able to see the individual scales. The stegosaurs, the animals with the plates on their back and the spikes on their tail that I mentioned earlier. In Jurassic World, they actually took a step back from what we saw in The Lost World, in the second Jurassic Park movie. Their tail position was swinging a lot lower than the stegosaur would have done, at least on a regular basis. And the animal called Parasaurolophus, the duck-billed dinosaur that is seen at one point, this one's kind of really nitpicky. But they had a great jaw motion, a lower jaw motion while he was chewing. The upper jaw, and I can understand why they wouldn't do this from a budget perspective, and I don't blame them for it, but the upper jaw of these animals actually had more joints in it than most typical upper jaws do, and there would have been flexion, they call it cranial kinesis, of the bones moving against each other to help shear and grind the food as it chewed, and didn't see any of that throbbing or moving of the bones in the upper jaw that you might expect. Again, that's really picky. The last thing, and this is one that would have been so easy to change and the audiences wouldn't have even noticed it. The Velociraptors, the T-Rex, even the Indominus Rex, and also the ostrich mimic dinosaurs. The posture that they had for their arms kind of with their palms down and kind of in a bunny rabbit position in front of their bodies, that's been found to be incorrect, and it's something that paleontologists told them about and have been complaining about for a while. But they actually would have had palms that faced towards each other, the way that the limbs fit together. This allows the arms to be ready to snatch something, and is a lot scarier than the T-Rex with the little derpy bunny arms. I mean, it actually can make them look a little bit intimidating if they're in the right position, but for some reason they decided not to change that. One way paleontologists remember that is to say dinosaurs are clappers, not slappers, so their palms are facing in. And in all honesty, as scary as Indominus Rex was, that would have helped a lot in making his arms look a little less derpy and a little more scary. So in summary, I would highly recommend this film. I didn't think I would have, but it was a lot of fun. I loved it. I would also highly recommend learning more about dinosaurs online or at your local library. It really is a thrill to return to the world of Jurassic World. And I'm glad we're going back there. I'm gonna be right there watching the next two movies. I really do hope that they update them. They've left the script open to update them. So really, I think that's gonna boil down to what you guys say and how you react, and it's going to boil down to the general audience showing Hollywood that they're ready and that they want feathered dinosaurs. And if you don't feel ready, if you don't want them, if you still think it looks silly, if you think like so many people that dinosaurs with feathers would just look like silly overgrown turkeys, I would invite you to listen to the wise words of Dr. Alan Grant from the first Jurassic Park.
A turkey, huh?
No.
Okay. Try to imagine yourself in the Cretaceous period. You get your first look at this 6-foot turkey as you enter a clearing. And he slashes at you with this 6-inch retractable claw, like a razor, on the middle toe. He doesn't bother to bite your jugular like a lion, say. No. He slashes at you here, or here.
Well.
Or maybe across the belly, spilling your intestines. The point is, you are alive when they start to eat you. So, try to show a little respect.
Okay.
Thanks for taking the time to listen and watch and let me talk your ear off about dinosaurs. This video is actually launching my new channel, The Doodling Dino. It's about how to draw dinosaurs and about dinosaur news and paleobiology. Learning about dinosaurs. Would invite you to come back. I'm going to be posting a video every 2 weeks, and as things pick up, hopefully by the end of the summer, I'll be posting once a week. So come visit me again. You can follow me on Tumblr and Twitter. Both places I'm the Doodling Dino. And click subscribe below. Oh, and by the way, quick shameless self-plug here. If you're a dinosaur museum or a filmmaker involved with dinosaurs, I will actually be completing my current engagement at the BYU Museum of Paleontology fairly soon. I'm wrapping up my final project there. If you like what you saw in this video and you need a paleo artist, I am available. So go see the movie, prepare to have fun. It's going to be a blast for you. And I hope you enjoyed the final image. I think it turned out pretty cool, personally. Let me know what you think in the comments, and have a great week. Bye.